So I've been using the Leviathan's Breath for the past week and a half, 2 weeks, more or less, and I think it's time to talk about it. It's time to talk about what I like about it, what I don't like about it, how it fares against other weapons, basically. Essentially, would I swap this with any other weapon, or would I keep it permanently in my heavy slot? Those kind of things. Essentially giving a review, okay? Let's get into it. So, everything in this review rather, could basically be summed up with this weapon is the lens of Destiny 2. What does that mean? Well, the lens, LENZ, is a weapon in Warframe. It is a bow. It is a, I guess, heavy bow that shoots arrows that do a lot of damage by nuking entire rooms. Sounds a little bit like the Leviathan's Breath, minus the nuking rooms part. Okay? There's a lot of similarities between the lens and the Leviathan's Breath. For one thing, they both do a lot of damage in terms of just pure raw base damage. Both of these weapons are the top of their class in terms of that kind of raw base damage. Leviathan's Breath being a heavy bow, you would expect it to do heavy amounts of damage. The lens also does heavy amounts of damage. Both of these weapons have small ammo pools. As a heavy weapon, typically, like rocket launchers, the Leviathan's Breath rather, has less ammo than usual. It only has an ammo count of 10. The lens, on the other hand, only has an ammo count of 7. Furthermore, both of these weapons draw back really slowly. Both games have different averages in terms of draw speed. For Warframe, the average draw speed for every bow now is around about half a second. Most bows fit in that half a second category, whereas in Destiny 2, it seems like most bows fit in that 1 second category. No Turning Back, Subtle Calamity, Le Monarch Trinity Bull, they all seem to take about a second to draw back. So Leviathan's Breath, as far as I can tell, probably has like a 2-second draw time. It's a lot slower than No Turning Back, especially No Turning Back. The lens draws a lot slower than Paris Prime, for example. I think the lens has a 1 second base draw speed. So they also have secondary damage mechanics in the way of some sort of special explosion that is part of a trait for Leviathan's Breath. For the lens, there is that little slow bubble impact prop thing that comes at the start before the big explosion. Okay, so there are 4 key points in the Leviathan's Breath that are basically similar to the way the lens works, which is why the Leviathan's Breath is in fact the lens of Destiny 2. Which means the pros of this weapon are, of course, the extremely high base damage, like I've already said. In terms of comparison between this weapon and No Turning Back, we're looking at around about a 10 times multiplier. So, for example, if I shoot a Cabal in the head and I do about 1600 damage, I can then shoot the same Cabal in the head with my Leviathan's Breath and do about 15,900 damage. So we're looking at around about a 10 times multiplier. Another thing that is really good about this weapon is that it's also capable of completely destroying unstoppable enemies, staggering those unstoppable enemies with that secondary explosion stagger mechanic that I was talking about. This is really, really good for me because I never bothered to get that hand cannon mod because I hate hand cannons. So for the longest time, I did not have a weapon that could go up against unstoppable enemies. Now I do! Which means I am now covered against barriers, I am covered against the Overlord ones, and now I am covered against unstoppable champions. So that's really, really good. Furthermore, as a weapon that sort of functions like a lens, it doesn't actually have a self-killing explosive mechanic. The lens can kill you. The Leviathan's Breath can't. So if your name happens to be Quiet Shy, you'll really, really like a heavy bow like this. 100%. But that is to say that this weapon is not without its flaws. And the flaws to me are, in some regard, kind of fatal to this weapon. And that would be Well, first off, we'll get the more minor-ish one out of the way, which is the long draw time. Like I said, the Leviathan's Breath probably has around about a 2-second draw time, which is just a lot slower than the what seems to be the average draw time for most bows, being roughly a second. This is annoying. It makes it a lot more difficult, a lot less flowy, a lot less flowing for me when it comes to using a bow. Takes a little bit of time to get used to. It's not end of the world, but if you happen to be using another bow for a while and then you jump to Leviathan's Breath, this is going to be easily one of the first things you'll notice, and you'll really want to draw that bow back, otherwise you're not going to do a whole lot and you're going to waste an entire bolt, an entire heavy bolt from a pool of up to 10, which is the second problem that I have with this weapon, which is of course the low ammo pool. In Warframe, the lens also has a very low ammo pool of 7, but for the lens, it's a lot easier to manage that very tiny ammo pool, that very tiny quiver of arrows, because the lens has innate ammo mutation. Which means that if you decide to grab, let's say, some rifle ammo, you can grab some rifle ammo for your bow, and the bow will mutate that ammo into 1 or 2 arrows, with the idea that you'd want to look around for sniper/bow ammo, i.e. arrows, because that's the most efficient way of getting your ammo count back up to 7. I don't know if it would be hilariously overpowered, maybe in PvP, but I don't care about PvP, so I don't care about that. But I don't know if it's going to be hilariously overpowered in PvE missions if the Leviathan's Breath had its own form of arrow mutation, being able to restore maybe 1 or 2 arrows tops if you happen to grab primary ammo, 3, maybe 4 arrows tops if you happen to grab secondary ammo, and then like a whopping 8 arrows if you happen to grab heavy ammo. I think that might be really good. Maybe not 8, maybe 6 for heavy ammo. I don't know. Balance-wise, it could be it could be up in the air, but I really think for a weapon like this, really benefit from some arrow mutation mechanic or something similar like that. But it really is because of that low ammo count and the fact that it has to rely on heavy ammo, which is rare, which means that you could find yourself at an extended period of time where your Leviathan's Breath has no ammo, or i.e. it has no bolt, meaning that it's basically a bit of a dead paperweight. It's because of that I cannot say that this is a weapon that you want to keep in your heavy slot at all times. Now keep in mind, normally you'd ask any other Destiny YouTuber, they'd be like, no, you want to cycle through your weapons, you want to like use different weapons, every weapon has its own place. Some weapons have their strengths, some weapons have their weaknesses, but you don't necessarily, like, nobody would ever say just keep this weapon in your secondary slot, you'll be fine. No. I'm not that kind of a person, I'm a bow fetishist. So to me, you have bows like Le Monarch, Trinity Ghoul. These bows, well, you can land the headshots. These bows are weapons that I would recommend saving in your entity slot at all times. The Leviathan's Breath, being an exotic heavy bow, competes with those weapons. So in a normal mission, if you're juggling between Le Monarch, Trinity Ghoul versus Leviathan's Breath, I would stick to Le Monarch, Trinity Ghoul. Simply because of the ammo count alone. That's already enough to throw me off. That ammo count is just simply too low. However, if you have to be in a mission like a Nightmare Ordeal and involves a lot of unstoppable enemies, then that's a bit of a no-brainer. You'll want to use Leviathan's Breath. For me, luckily, I am able to use Leviathan's Breath, and then I have a submachine gun / auto rifle that I could use to go against barrier enemies, and then I also have no turning back with overload arrows, so that's really good. My loadout is sorted out. But if you don't happen to have those weapons, and instead you're using hand cannons, like if you're using the hand cannon mod and you're using hand cannons a lot, I guess you don't need to use Leviathan's Breath either. So, you know, like, it's not as a ubiquitous weapon as Le Monarch Trinity War, you know? That's really it, in terms of my thoughts. It's overall a good weapon, but it's not going to replace really good staple weapons, for me, at least, for me. Anyway, let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below, in particular that last point that I was making, the juggling between different weapons. Let me know what you think about that in the comments below. Otherwise, if you like this weapon, or if you like this video rather, hit that like button, subscribe for more Destiny 2 action, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.